Hello everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful semester. Thank you for watching my video presentation. Today I will be talking about the Baccarat Machine, Chun-Yi Sun, better known as Kelly Sun, the mastermind behind the Phil Ivey edge sorting scandals that occurred in the early 2010s, a truly fascinating woman. Fascination with Kelly begins in her earliest life. She was born wealthy in China, but quickly lost it during Mao's Cultural Revolution after her father's assets were seized. She claims to have lived in poverty during this time. However, it did not last very long. Once capitalism returned to China, Kelly's father was able to rebuild his wealth, and so Kelly grew up wealthy once again and was able to begin her opulent gambling life. Gambling as young as the age of 14 and absolutely fell in love with the casinos. She spent her early 20s jet setting, traveling, living the true high roller lifestyle, including Las Vegas. After a particularly hefty loss that she was wandering around the casino when she saw a gentleman sitting on the slot machines, a video poker machine playing very rapidly. She said to herself, wow, this man must be a professional. She approached him and said, will you teach me how to do that? From then on, he took her under his wing. She was like an apprentice of sorts, learning how to advantage play and how to beat the casinos. Despite this knowledge, Kelly couldn't quite shake that gambling high roller lifestyle. She was playing at MGM Grand in 2006 with some friends from overseas. At that point, they had collectively lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. A friend of hers turned to her and asked to borrow $100,000. Kelly complied. She received a marker from MGM for $100 grand, signed it in her name, gave the money to her friend, and believed that it would be taken care of. It wasn't until she returned from traveling from Paris for approximately 6 months. When she arrived in the United States, she was arrested on the spot and extradited to Las Vegas to serve for this unpaid marker. And 3 weeks in the Clark County Detention Center while her father tried to sort out this issue. During that time, Stephen Black came to her, gave her a deck of cards, and says, practice your card counting. This reminded her of this advantage playing and this ability to beat the casinos, and from then on, she began to plan her revenge against MGM for putting her in this situation. Kelly came up with an edge sorting scheme as part of her plan to beat the casino. Now, what exactly is edge sorting? Playing cards, certain brands are cut a certain way so that the two edges are not quite the same. I will demonstrate here. Here I will show you exactly what I mean. I have a deck of Gemico branded cards. These are the same branded cards that were used during Kelly's scheme at the Baccarat. Here you can see that these cards have an asymmetrical circle pattern on their backs. Here's one edge. You can see how the semicircle here is cut off a certain way. Now I'm going to rotate the card and look here. It's a very minute difference, but the circle here is cut a different way, back to back, so that it's easier to see. You can see the pattern here rises a little bit higher on the edge than it does on this side. Very, very fine. If you don't have a keen eye, you cannot see it. Kelly had a keen eye. So what she did is she would go into these casinos, she would request a Mandarin or Cantonese speaking dealer, and she would tell the dealer to rotate these cards, quite literally rotate these cards a certain way so that the edges were aligned according to their value. What I mean is that higher value cards, 7, 8, 9, would have, say, the wider circle on one side, and lower valued cards would have the shorter circle on one side. When the cards sit in the Baccarat shoe, only one edge can be seen, but that was enough. Kelly figured out that according to which valued card came out first, whether it was a lower valued card or a higher valued card, which side had a better chance of winning, and that was all she needed. This was proven to be successful. So now we take all these elements together. You have a Mandarin or Cantonese speaking dealer who understands Kelly's instructions of the way that she wants the cards turned according to their edges. She also requested that the casino reuse the same deck after she had sorted it accordingly, because the rotation doesn't happen as it's being shuffled. So when they brought it back out of the machine, it was aligned exactly how she had planned it. Casinos allowed her to do this. I'll be coming back to this, but first, let's talk more about how she implemented this. So Kelly began using the scheme at various MGM properties, such as the Aria. Now, it started to come out amongst surveillance and game protection communities that something was happening here. I mean, she was winning millions of dollars doing this, and nobody could quite figure out how. Word got back around to Stephen Black, and he said to himself, wow, that sure does sound like Kelly. He approached her and said, if you really want to do this and you really want to make some real money, let me introduce you to Phil Ivey. So it was at this point that the three of them came together, Ivy as the bankroll, Kelly as the mastermind, Stephen Black as the one who introduced them, and started hitting up all the casinos doing this, and it was working. It was working. In 2012, they visited the Borgata, an MGM property located in Atlantic City. Again, same demands. Mandarin or Cantonese speaking dealer want to use the same cards. Now, at this point, Kelly was already known amongst surveillance and the game protection communities for doing this. And Borgata, they complied with all of her demands. Once again, Ivy and Son tried to complete the scheme at Crockford's in London, England. This time, though, there was a surveillance operator who was familiar with edge sorting and seemed to realize what was happening. As they were playing, as they were winning a ton of money, he calls down to the pit and explains what he believes is going on. As a first line of defense, most casinos will immediately change the cards, especially if they're not quite sure what's going on. So the pit bosses approach Ivy and Son and say, we need to change the cards. Well, they refused. And at this point, they left. After this, Crockford's refused to pay out their winnings, approximately $7.8 million in US dollars. After the Crockford's incident, the jig was up. All the casinos that they had hit had started to catch on to what was happening. Borgata sued in 2014 for approximately $15.6 million in winnings and damages. They also tried to sue Gemico, the card manufacturer, believing that they had been sold faulty cards. In turn, Ivy sued Crockford's for his unpaid winnings, but the UK courts settled in favor of Crockford's, and so his winnings were not paid. The point of this, though, is not the legality, is not the money, is not the lawsuits. The point of this is whether or not Kelly truly cheated. Taking into consideration that these casinos complied with all of their demands, can we really say that this was an act of cheating? Is it even really an act of advantage playing? How was she able to get away with it for so long? One of the main factors that I believe went into this is this stereotype, this racist stereotype that Asian women are superstitious, especially Baccarat players, that they have weird rituals. So these racist pit bosses did not think that this Asian woman was smart enough to come up with this scheme. They really believed that her rotating of the cards and all these really specific demands were just a part of her superstition. That's a failure of the casino staff. Their lack of knowledge, their blatant racism. I believe that this is not an act of cheating, that Kelly was a genius in her own way. She was able to play into the weaknesses of these casinos. She played them like a fiddle, and it worked. There's also the factor that Kelly is in relative anonymity compared to Ivy. You know, he's a famous poker player. When you look at all these articles, you see Ivy's name and a female Asian accomplice. She is just truly fascinating. She has such an infamous reputation as being dangerous, as being savvy, but she is still allowed to play here in Nevada. She is not barred by the Gaming Control Board. However, I do believe she is barred from all MGM properties, but she does still frequent local casinos such as Rampart, Red Rock, Palace Station. I believe she's played at Stratosphere. I have dealt to her personally. She is charming in her own way, manipulative, fascinating, just truly fascinating. If you would like to see Kelly for yourself, she does have a public YouTube available in the link seen on the screen. And also, her story has been optioned. The rights have been bought to make a movie, The Baccarat Machine, The Baccarat Queen. Supposedly, Awkwafina is supposed to be starring her. I personally can't wait to watch this. So that should be just wow. Thank you all so much for listening to my presentation. I implore you to think about the legality of this situation, to think about the failures of the casinos that allowed such a grand scheme to happen, to think about the different ways that players can beat the casinos. Thank you so much again. I hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your semester. Best wishes.